Tabletop tip of the day. Number 3, what's in a name? Do you have trouble coming up with names for a PC or an NPC at your table, especially in the spur of the moment, especially in fantasy games? Well, hi, welcome to Tabletop Tip of the Day. My name is Storm. I have been role playing since 1977. I'm also an illustrator and I work in the tabletop role playing game industry, for decades now. I think about how to tell a story all the time, whether I'm a GM or a player or in my studio working on a character commission or doing a publisher's job. So this is something I think about all the time, and maybe just maybe I can amuse you for a bit and give you something to think about for your own games. Um, Coming up with names is not easy, especially on the fly, especially in fantasy situations. But even in modern settings such as superhero or some kind of cops and robbers modern thing, coming up with a good name can be difficult. And there's a lot of weight in a name. It can infer so much. It can convey information, especially about culture, about ethnicity, things like that. Consider a villain named Agathon, or compare that to Fred. Fred might work better in some cases to be ironic, or if the villain is kind of a sad sack. Look at Bill the Vampire in that vampire show that I'm blanking on its name at the moment. Anyways, so I have a tip for you. Fantasy Name Generator is a tab that I have open pretty much anytime I GM, whether that's a face-to-face game or whether that is over, some kind of online situation such as Discord or what have you. I have Fantasy Name Generator open all the time, and don't mistake Fantasy Name Generator for just being fantasy names. It covers a whole lot. More on that in a moment. So here we are on the Fantasy Name Generator homepage, right? And so you've got a bunch of different types of categories up the top. So we have fantasy and folklore, real names, places and location, etc. Right? So like in the fantasy names, you can see ogre names, orc names, elf names, all kinds of stuff. But I really want to talk about the real name section because this is where this is what I pull most from. I really like Tamil or Punjabi or Laotian or Finnish names. All of these names can be very evocative. So one of the cool things that happens is let's go into Pictish names. Okay, so we're going in there, and they'll this is one that only gives you one type of name. More on that in a second. So let me go back to real places and let's go into Tamil. So, there's a whole selection of little names that come up that are kind of, randomly generated and stuff like that. But the cool thing is you can get male names or you can get female names. And so very quickly, if this tab is open and you got to name an NPC on the, spur of the moment, you can do so and have it have weight, have it fit in culturally, especially in a fantasy situation. So, anyways, that is the fantasy name generator. So I want to segue into talking about naming conventions. I think having sort of a coherent naming convention for your setting can be really really cool. In our recent Stonetop RPG, and for those who don't know, Stonetop is a hearth and home RPG centering around the village of Stonetop. In the book lore itself, the naming conventions are kind of Celtic. But where our stone top was placed, it was more geopolitically Albania, Croatia, somewhere in that area. So I tapped into Polish and Slavic and Albanian Croatian names for so many of my NPCs. And we had, like, over in 30 episodes, we had to name something like 80 NPCs. We kept making them up every episode. It was crazy. I mean, Stone Top very much is a generates a lot of NPCs, so it was very important. Neil's NPC was named Marn, and he was from a far away Constantinople kind of analog, and so he tapped into Punjabi and Tamil names for his family and his contacts. Pete's player character was named Excelli, and he came with a band of brothers, literally like a bunch of mercenaries from a faraway northern realm. And so Pete riffed off of Finnish names, not only for himself, but for his whole band. And I think this added just a touch of nuance to our Stone Top game, and I think it really, really worked. I also want to talk about superhero names. Well, specifically their code names, because so many great code names have already been taken, and they have so much exposure and so much weight to them. If we use them, our table mates are going to look at us with a pity in their eyes. I'm Spider-Man, but not the real Spider-Man. I'm a different Spider-Man. Okay, that took way too long to explain at the table. So, and how can anyone think about anyone else except the classic Marvel wall crawler, right? So look up some spider names, dude. Wolf Spider has been used, but it was a B listed minor superhero or supervillain. Probably been used by both, large comic book companies. Doesn't have the same exposure. You could probably get away with Wolf Spider. Consider looking into the Latin of the spider. Arnea. Forgive my pronunciation. I'm not quite sure how to say it, but you know, also the thesaurus is your friend. You can type thesaurus in your search bar, and you can bring up several thesauruses. I had a superhero named Flanker, and this was in a short campaign that was based in Ann Arbor. My PC was on the U of M, University of Michigan football team as a wide receiver. I could not go with the name Wolverine as a nod to the of M football team, although that would have made sense on some level because Wolverine just has so much history, so much weight. It is such an iconic character. And besides, my character was a speedster. He wasn't some close in, you know, balls to the wall kind of claws and all that stuff. So while looking up football terms, I came across the statement like the wide receiver is flanked out wide. Um, you hear that a lot on football broadcasts. So hence the name flanker. And that wraps up my tip of the day. Please consider subscribing and liking and all the stuff that makes YouTube happy. Links to my art, some swag, and if you're in need of fantasy and sci-fi superhero clip art, the link will be down below as well. I want to give a shout out to Blambot, which is where I grabbed these fonts from. I'll have a link to that also. Thanks for tuning in, and keep on keeping on.